travelers, and welcome to Go See, Do, Explore.
Here, we dive deep into the heart of travel, sharing hidden gems, unforgettable experiences, and the stories that make each destination unique.
Whether you're a seasoned traveler or dreaming of your next getaway, you're in the right place to get inspired.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh.
And together, we'll set the course for your next great adventure and discover the stories that make each place unforgettable.
It's time to go, see, and do more. Let's explore. Hello, everybody. We're back for another episode of the Go See, Do, Explore podcast. And I thought this week it might be interesting to kind of dive into some of the travel news these last few weeks.
Yeah, it seems like there's been a lot.
Yeah, I was actually able to find kind of a lot. So maybe this will become a monthly thing. Maybe it won't. We'll see. But as of right now, here is, we're going to be talking about some recent news in the travel sphere.
Yeah,
if you will.
I'm sure I'll have some questions. Whatever the opposite of a news junkie is, that's what I am. So, I mean, I've read these and have basic familiarity, but I'm looking forward to asking you some questions about what some of this means.
Since we are based in the U.S., we're going to start with U.S. American-based news. And the first headline is that the United States set the record in 2023 with the biggest travel and tourism market, 82% higher than China, which came in number 2 at $2.36 trillion.
Right. So in other words, $2.36 trillion of the U.S. economy is tourism or was tourism in 2023. And that is substantially higher than any other country.
Yeah, 82% higher than the number 2 is pretty surprising. And I was actually kind of surprised that the number 2 was China also.
Yeah. I know that, of course, the United States is a big tourism destination, both domestically and internationally. But one of the things that I was thinking about here is I feel like so many Americans have been traveling outside of the country lately, which wouldn't be included in this figure.
Right.
If you go to another country and spend money, that's contributing to their GDP, not ours. So to see the U.S. travel market so strong is really interesting.
The third place in 2023 was Germany with $487.6 billion. Japan was fourth, $297 billion. And the UK at $295.2 billion. It is expected that France, which was at 6th, will go up a little higher for 2024 because of the Olympics.
I was not surprised to see the U.S. as a high country. I was just surprised that it was so much higher than any other country, considering, like, for example, France is a very popular tourist destination in any year.
Yeah, I feel like they say France is the number 1 tourist destination in the world. Is that?
I think it's second to the U.S. I think it's number
second?
1 in Europe, I think. But, I mean, they have the Olympics this year, too.
Right.
Right. And,
well, this is 2023. So it'll be interesting to see 2024. I think France will probably be a little higher, probably higher than Germany would be my guess.
That makes more sense. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So the next piece of news is that federal officials launch a probe into airline rewards programs.
Yeah, there's been actually a lot of news around the points programs lately. You know, they're not legal in some other places, like in Europe, for example. And there's a strong push in the U.S. to make the same decision. And there are good reasons for it. And I'm sorry if you really like points, if you use points. I'm not against you personally, but the thing is, it incentivizes spending and it causes prices to rise because the more you swipe your credit card over, say, a debit card, the more the store is paying to their merchant services, and in turn, they have to raise their prices accordingly. So even if you don't carry a balance on your credit cards, even if you always pay out your credit cards on time, still the fact that prices are rising, you pay for this. They wouldn't do these things if
they lost money.
Right. And so I know some people out there, like what I'm saying, I know some people will have very strong disagreement with, and that's fine. But this is going to be, I think, a battle that we'll see. And the credit card lobby is very strong in the United States. I don't know that it's going to change, but definitely people who are really into consumer protection and consumer rights I think, have good points on this one. It's definitely a story to follow.
This probe in particular is looking at American, Southwest, Delta, and United, the big four airlines in the US. And it is focused on the ways consumers participating in airline rewards programs are impacted by the devaluation of earned rewards, hidden or dynamic pricing, extra fees, and reduced competition and choice, according to the US Department of Transportation.
Yeah, it's a really crazy little microeconomy. If you take the Delta American Express card, for example, the US GDP is about $25 trillion. There's about $250 billion in Delta Amex spending every year. In other words, a full 1% of US gross domestic product flows through the Delta American Express credit card. Some of these airlines are making way more money as banks than they are as airlines. And that's not necessarily inherently bad, but there's a lot of dangers and traps to the consumer in this environment, and a lot of sort of hidden costs and hidden manipulations that are not necessarily what you'd think they would be.
Well, and I feel like this wording of devaluation of earned rewards comes from just a few months ago. Didn't Delta redo the reward system and really push down the rewards that people were getting? And so therefore you've been spending all this money to get to a certain tier, and then you're not at that tier.
Yeah, it's like it's like another currency, right? And it's a currency though that's not regulated by people, citizens of a nation, but rather banks and airlines. And yeah, so I'm glad to see action here. Whatever comes of it, I'm just happy to see attention on these programs.
I wonder how the Points guy feels about this.
Oh, Points guy is lobbying hard against this stuff. Just if you go to their website, you'll see it's right there. They're really, they've built their whole business on points, so I get it. But, just because it's good for them doesn't mean it's good for the consumer.
The next headline is also about the federal government, and that is that the DOJ is allowing the Alaska and Hawaii Airlines merger to continue, right?
That's good. I think that was a pretty clear, there's not really any, they operate primarily different routes. There's just not really an issue that I could see.
So they, together, Alaska and Hawaii have 140 combined destinations with only 12 routes that overlap. And only 3 of those routes are they the only carriers. Yeah. So it's totally different from the JetBlue Spirit thing. But since the DOJ has approved it, now it goes to the Department of Transportation to approve before final merger.
Is the DOT worried about anti-competition, or are they worried about logistics, right? It's more like making sure that essential routes are served and stuff like that, right?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Yeah. I'd imagine they're probably with both Alaska and Hawaii. I don't know this. I'm totally speculating, but I'd imagine they get essential air service money. Well, actually, in fact, I know Alaska Airlines gets essential air service money.
And so I'm sure Hawaii
probably
does
too, because they have to serve these routes that no one else is going to serve.
It does say they will have interchangeable aircraft, which I'm sure the people that use Hawaiian Airlines are very excited about.
Yeah, as long as the doors stay on, we're good. Yeah.
In other news, workers at Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott hotels go on strike. So thousands of hotel workers across the country are striking, demanding better wages and workloads and a reversal of a lot of the cuts that came from the COVID pandemic. I don't work in the hotel industry. You can feel that. You can feel that there's cuts to those services. There's less services than there was in 2019. When you go to a hotel and there's only housekeeping every other day or every 2 days. And then you can only imagine what the workload is being put on those people. So I get it.
Yeah. I don't really know enough to have much of a say as far as whether a strike is the right action or not. But what I do know is a few things that you should know if you don't. First of all, people that work in hospitality, people that work in hotels and restaurants work very, very hard. They work really, really hard for usually kind of the lowest wages in our economy. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that in those businesses, in that service industry, margins tend to be very, very tight. It's tough for business owners in that space too. And most of the time, small operators are not making money, or they're not making a lot of money. The other complexity of this world and this franchisee model, where you have a company like Hilton or Hyatt or Marriott who is a flag essentially being over these individual owner-operators, is that traditionally those companies have been able to kind of stay out of the fray when it comes to labor disputes, because they can point to the owner-operator and say, look, they're a small company, they only have 30 employees, they're exempt from all these things, right? And so it's just one of those labor situations that can actually be quite complex. And it's easy sometimes to look at the owner of a hotel or a restaurant and say, wow, they must be making a ton of money, but they're not. And yeah, I hope that everyone gets what they're looking for here. I hope for, better wages and conditions for employees. I hope for profitable businesses for our economy. Yeah, hopefully this all gets worked out well.
The strike is going on in 25 hotels in 9 cities across the U.S.
Oh, is it like a selective...
It's hotels in Boston, Baltimore, Greenwich, Honolulu, Kauai, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, and Seattle.
Yeah, like you see in this article, it says the hotel industry is making record profits. I'm sure that Hilton, Hyatt, etc. are, but those individual hotels aren't necessarily.
Probably by the time this episode comes out, the strike will be over. It said it was expected to last about 3 days, with additional strikes being authorized in the future. So it probably won't affect you by the time this comes out, but it's kind of interesting. Especially because those are like the 3 big hotel brands in the US.
Yeah.
Our next piece of news is that all JetBlue flights now include a carry-on bag.
That's nice.
It's very nice.
We've never flown JetBlue.
No, we've never flown JetBlue. It's not a big airline in and out of Detroit, so it just kind of hasn't happened. I think it's interesting when you think about the fact that the Department of Justice shut down the merger between JetBlue and Spirit because it is essentially like getting rid of that budget airline. But now I feel like JetBlue is doing things, I guess, to maybe differentiate themselves from the budget airlines to kind of create that like middle tier.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this is a result of the changes that Spirit and Frontier, and Southwest for that matter, have been making.
Oh, yeah. We didn't put any of that Southwest. That's all, I guess, was older. But there were a lot of changes coming to Southwest.
Southwest is operating more like just another low-cost carrier. We can talk about that another time maybe. But yeah, JetBlue has always tried to differentiate themselves a little bit and be a little bit more upmarket than Spirit and Frontier. And this is maybe one of those ways. As people are seeing the bundles for Spirit and Frontier that include baggage, this is maybe JetBlue saying, well, we'll just give it to you. That's my speculation. But
their tickets still do not include checked luggage or advanced seat selection, so those things are still extra. Mm-hmm. Now, in some Arizona-based news, Havasu Falls, which is a very iconic waterfall I feel like I'm going to butcher this name, on the Havasupai Reservation, is closed until further notice due to a flash flood where I think 3 people died. Yeah. There was a big rescue attempt to try to get people out from the gorge, and now the government is having to like bring food into the residents of that reservation. So if you had planned to visit Havasu Falls, you probably want to postpone that.
Yeah.
Because obviously that is not the priority right now.
Right.
And also in Arizona news, overnight stays on the south rim of the Grand Canyon are halted because of a water main break. So, talking about wanting to postpone your travel to Havasu Falls, if you have your dream Grand Canyon trip with an overnight at the Phantom Ranch, I hate to break it to you, but the Phantom Ranch is not operational right now.
Yeah. If you have a trip planned, probably this.
Yes. The national park is still open for day visitors. I've heard from a few people that had a Grand Canyon once in a lifetime kind of trip planned, and now they are having to rethink their vacation plans.
Well, if it's once in a lifetime, they can just do it next year.
Yeah. If you still want to visit the Grand Canyon, we had a really great experience at the Best Western Premiere in Tucson, which is just outside of the entrance to the park. And their water and everything should still be working just fine. And I mean, when we stayed at that hotel, they told you not to drink the water out of the toilet because it came off the roof.
Yeah. And I didn't.
And of course, if you're wanting to ditch your Grand Canyon plans altogether, there are other alternatives in the area, like visiting Montezuma Castle, or the Little Colorado River Gorge is nearby and is impressive, as well as you can check out some of the locations in the nearby Navajo or Hopi lands. So
Just not Havasu Falls.
just don't go to Havasu Falls right now either.
That's kind of crazy that there are issues at both of those locations.
Yeah. Now, another outdoor destination in the U.S., the Kalalau Trail in Hawaii, in Kauai, is currently closed due to a possible norovirus outbreak.
I'm really curious how you get norovirus from a trail. Like, what is... Because that's... I mean, I'm being funny, but seriously, the norovirus is typically spread by people or, like, through food, through water, contaminated water.
I mean, it could be contaminated water on the trail.
Like, sitting on the trail? I mean, I don't doubt the story. I'm just really curious how this is happening. Maybe they don't know either.
Yeah, kind of from my understanding of the article is they don't really seem to know why. It sounds like one person had to be evacuated from the trail and hospitalized.
Yeah, norovirus is no joke.
And several people have been seriously ill.
Yeah.
The extreme remote nature of the park causes it to be a little bit more dangerous because it's not easy to get out of there. Yeah, so if you were planning on hiking that iconic Hawaiian trail, I would postpone that as well.
If you are a doctor who specializes in infectious viruses and can explain to me how this would happen, like, please, I'm really curious.
Now, in non-devastating sickness spreading
You
news,
have some happy news?
Royal Caribbean is partnering to bring free internet to downtown Juneau, Alaska. Hey, is that our ship?
That's cool. I was, when you shared this story with me, I was trying to remember what the cell signal was like in Juneau. I didn't really remember it being an issue, but this is great, of course. And the residents of Juneau will benefit from it too, I'm sure.
The cruise lines partner with a lot of these Alaskan cities to kind of beef up their infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I mean, in some cases, they've kind of built little towns for their ships to be able to visit. Well, we can have a conversation about whether that's a good idea or not on their episode.
Mixed bag.
But it's pretty cool. And especially because, like, I remember when we were in Alaska, I was trying to download a show to watch on the ship. And, like, we went to a coffee shop in one of the towns and, like, because everybody just got off the ship and went to the coffee shop, there was, like, no internet there.
Yeah. So Royal Caribbean really should be bringing this to Sitka. That's where they need it, I think. But no, this is great, obviously, for the residents of Juneau. And it makes a nice experience for the cruise ship passengers, too. I don't really feel bad for cruise ship passengers that don't have internet, but obviously makes a nice experience for them.
Oh, yeah. So that is the end of our U.S.-based news. Should we go to a wine break?
Yeah, let me go find some wine. We're here for the wine break. We are going to a continent today on the wine break that we have not yet been to, and that is to Africa. We're taking a little journey here to South Africa. We have a wine called Kamusha, and it's a South African wine, and it is a Pinotage. So Pinotage is interesting. It's a grape that is a cross between Pinot Noir and Cinsault, and it's supposed to be a lot like Pinot Noir. I've had it, but it's been a long time, so I'm really curious to see what this is like. But yeah, let's try it, and we can talk more about it if we try it.
It smells very fruity, very dark.
The aroma reminds me of Pinot Noir. It is darker than Pinot Noir, but yeah.
Gooseberry right on the nose.
Yeah, no. It is pretty light. It is pretty light. It doesn't have that, like, cherry flavor that Pinot Noir often has, but yeah, really nice light wine. South Africa is quite a wine producer. I don't recall offhand where it ranks globally, but they make a lot of wine there. And Pinotage is a popular variety there. There's some controversy around Pinotage I was reading because some growers considered it a hybrid and they wouldn't grow it and all that. But it is not a hybrid. A hybrid is when you cross multiple species. And both Pinot Noir and Cinsault are Vitis vinifera. And so it's just a cross, just like Cabernet Sauvignon is an ancient cross, right? Or maybe not ancient, but it's an old cross. Now they just make Cabernet Sauvignon from Cabernet Sauvignon, but there was a time when Cabernet Franc and Sauvignon Blanc were crossed. Cinsault is also a variety that I really like, and you don't see that often. We had Cinsault from William Chris. I bought a couple bottles of that, I think the first time we went. Really light, nice wine. But anyway, yeah, I like this one. I'll have to go to South Africa someday and go on a wine tour. As I mentioned, the name of this wine is Kamusha. On the bottle here it says that Kamusha is a Zimbabwean Shona language word meaning your home or your roots or your origins. Yeah, it's a natural wine too, and it is vegan. So no bees were harmed in the making of this wine, I suppose. In any case, yeah, one to check out.
So we are back with some news in the European travel front. SAS Airline, which is a Scandinavian airline, has exited Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Air France, KLM, are they one company?
Yes.
Oh, okay. They're taking a 19.9% stake in the company. And then as of September 1st, SAS Airline has entered the SkyTeam Alliance.
Which makes sense because Air France and KLM are SkyTeam as well.
And they have a goal of net zero emissions by 2050.
That's cool.
Another airline news. The EU is requiring Airbus A350s to be inspected after a fire on a Cathay Pacific flight from Hong Kong to Zurich. The engine caught fire shortly after takeoff. They will be inspecting 86 planes globally that are powered by these Rolls-Royce Trent XWB engines to prevent any future fires.
Yeah, hopefully they get that figured out. I mean, I hope they get this figured out, of course. Love to fly Cathay Pacific someday. I think they're a Filipino airline, I think. I might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure, though.
So let's move over to Paris, where the mayor has announced that they want to keep the Olympic rings on the Eiffel Tower semi-permanently.
Yeah.
They said until about 2028. What are your thoughts?
It seems like people are getting really worked up about it. One thing that's kind of funny is that people really didn't like the Eiffel Tower. At least that's the story anyway, is that people didn't really like the Eiffel Tower when it was first put up, and now it's the symbol of the city. So in a sense, putting the Olympic rings on there, now you're making people not like something again. Or it's not that they don't like the Eiffel Tower, but you know what I mean. It's like controversial.
The descendants of Gustave Eiffel say it was not intended as an advertising platform, which the Olympics are over, so what are they advertising?
Right, but also, like, the city of Paris and the country of France use the Eiffel Tower for advertising.
That's true.
Literally everything. So
other people have said that it's kind of goes against the spirit of the Olympics, in that at the closing ceremony, they already handed the torch over to
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise, that's right. To the Americans.
Yeah, they did that with the torch. They don't do it with the rings. I don't really get it. I mean, I don't know that I would do it if I was the mayor.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if in 2028, if they're still there after the LA Olympics, will they still be there? Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Will the mayor get harassed so much that she decides to take them down?
This is the same mayor that swam in the E. coli river, right?
Oh, yeah. To prove that it wasn't deadly.
Yeah, she's intense.
A little fierce, you might say.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move over to Italy, where Rome is considering an entrance fee to visit the Trevi Fountain.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen pictures of the Trevi Fountain in the heat of the day, and that was one of the reasons why we chose not to visit Rome.
Yeah.
I've seen like 8 a.m. there are mobs around the Trevi Fountain. I'm sure Rome is a beautiful place, but over tourism is making it so I don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's €1 to €2 per traveler. This seems like not a big deal to me. I don't know if...
I don't think €1 to €2 is really going to keep anyone from going there, but maybe that money could help them maintain the fountain.
Yeah.
And I wonder if it would allow them to cap how many people are there at one time.
Yeah, probably.
whereas right now it's just mob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, over-tourism continues to be a problem, especially in Rome, and we're going to talk about another place a little later on that is having to take some measures because of over-tourism. Yeah, this is a measure that Rome is considering to lessen the impact of over-tourism. I mean, the entrance fee to Venice didn't really seem to make a difference.
It says a timed ticket system, though.
Oh.
So that would make, I mean, really, I don't think it's even the money that helps. It's the timed ticket system.
All right, we're going to head over to Belgium in Antwerp, where the painter Peter Paul Rubens' house is partially reopening.
Was it closed because of the pandemic? Is that what it was?
Ongoing renovations.
Oh. Well, cool.
The pictures look absolutely beautiful.
The DIA, the Detroit Institute of Arts, has a lot of Peter Paul Rubens. So we've seen a lot of his work.
It seems very large. It's described as a Baroque palace. The core of the house remains closed until at least 2030. There's a new welcome center and gardens that you can tour. There aren't many paintings. There is a self-portrait, but they hope to make it up in atmosphere. He bought the house in 1610 as a studio and workshop, and it's the home where he painted many of his masterpieces.
Cool.
Recreating the gardens was difficult because the original plans did not survive, but his letters mentioned orange, lime, and fig trees. But yeah, the rest of the house won't open for another 6 years. So must be some big renovations going on.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a little cruise news. Back in May, a 3.5-year round-the-world voyage was supposed to begin on the Odyssey. To purchase one of these cabins costed almost $100,000 plus a monthly fee, but
what?
The cruise has yet to start.
What? I'm curious about the monthly fee. Like, why would they have that? I know that's not the news story. I'm just like, why? Because do some people not do the whole thing?
I wonder if the monthly fee is covering like your food
or gratuities
gratuities.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like if you're gonna pay however much you're gonna pay, they could just charge you what it costs.
But this article is following this couple who bought their tickets for this round the world cruise, and they have been waiting in Belfast since May, and they're getting a little bored of Belfast.
Yeah, that's a crazy story.
The ship, this is supposed to be its maiden voyage. It's scheduled to visit 425 ports in 147 countries on 7 continents. Passengers can sign up for segments or the entire 3.5-year voyage.
So I really wonder, and I know we won't have the answer to this, but like, are they going to just try to make up time, or are they going to skip some of the itinerary, or are they going to go longer when they do leave, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Can you imagine 3.5 years on a cruise ship?
Yeah, I mean, our 12-night cruise was a lot of fun. I could have gone longer.
Yeah.
But honestly, when we got to Lisbon, I didn't want to get off. I was like, no, this is home now.
Yeah.
But I think maybe another week I would have been going a little stir crazy. So
yeah. Another 3.5 years.
The couple that put the deposit down, they did get their money back. But yeah, the cruise is yet to set sail. So maybe October? We'll see. All right, let's move out of Europe and we'll talk about the other destination that is trying to deal with over-tourism, and that is New Zealand. So I guess New Zealand has had a tourism fee, and apparently it's not helping, so they are tripling it. It will now cost
$62.
It will now cost you $62 to visit New Zealand.
Which is not divisible by 3. So that must be a currency conversion.
Beginning October 1st, New Zealand will raise its fee from 35 New Zealand dollars to 100 New Zealand dollars. So 100 New Zealand dollars is about 62 US dollars. This is a move that New Zealand is hoping will ensure tourists contribute more to the infrastructure and environmental conservation of the country while visiting. And the cost of visas are going to be increasing as well.
It seems like if you're planning a trip to New Zealand from most places which are very far from New Zealand, this is not a huge increase. I mean, it's a huge increase, but it's not. I mean, relative to something like a flight to New Zealand.
I can only imagine how much a flight to New Zealand from Detroit.
Yeah, I did see that Australia and some Pacific Island nations are exempt from this.
So they're looking for the people who are spending lots of money to come from the other side of the world.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everywhere else besides Australia, Pacific Islands is really far from New Zealand. So, yeah.
And our last little bit of news here is that demand for all-inclusive resorts has decreased.
The demand that I put on all-inclusive resorts has stayed the same, which is I'm not particularly interested.
So for several years now, there's been a lot of demand for all-inclusive resorts. And I have to wonder if this has something to do with COVID. If you were flying to the Caribbean or wherever for your all-inclusive resort and you're staying in the resort, like you're not being exposed to as many people. Is it like, I just wonder if that's the way some people were thinking about it.
Maybe, yeah.
But unlike when you're like going out into a city and walking around and you're being exposed to like a whole bunch of different people, like the people staying at your resort, they might change a little bit day to day. But I just wonder if that's the thought process there.
It might be the mindset. I don't know if it's really correct.
I think some people are realizing too that for the cost of an all-inclusive vacation in the Caribbean, you can go to Europe and see places that are different.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any statistics here right now, but we've seen anecdotally, more and more people being interested in travel that engages local culture and things like that. And certainly when you go to, we've never done the all-inclusive resort thing, but we've even been places in the Caribbean and Central America where it's just like very obvious that the experience we're having is not of that place. It's just been planted there. Mm-hmm. And, that can be fun, but I think a lot of people are wanting something different from that.
Yeah, and I feel like kind of like what we were just talking about in Italy and New Zealand, maybe those people are taking those trips instead and causing this over-tourism problem. They're getting out of their bubble a little bit.
Well, people are definitely going to places where they want to post photos of themselves on Instagram. Like I feel like that's driving people's destination choices right now. And maybe the all-inclusives are not. I don't know.
Yeah. So that is it for our September 2024 news roundup. Let us know if this was interesting, if we should do this again in October, or should we stay in our lane and do more storytelling? You let us know.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
That's all for today's episode of Go, See, Do, Explore. Thank you for joining us and sharing in the wonder of travel.
Keep the spirit of today's adventure alive by checking out our blog at goseedoexplore.com for even more travel inspiration.
Don't forget to rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps fellow travelers find us and join our community.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep traveling by any means necessary.
I'm Christopher.
And I'm Ashleigh, bidding you farewell and happy exploring.